Everyone in XRP is staring at April 15th, 2026, like it is a simple pass or fail moment. I think that is exactly how mid-size holders get trapped, because the most dangerous outcome for XRP on April 15th is not a clean rejection. It is a headline that sounds bullish, sends social media into celebration, and still leaves the real money waiting on the sidelines. If you hold 750 XRP, 1,500 XRP, maybe 5,000 XRP, the gap between narrative clarity and actual legal clarity can cost you more than a bad day on the chart. There is one specific vote day outcome that could fool almost everybody. Stay with me, because near the end I am going to show why the headline most holders want might actually be the one that hurts them the most. Now, let me frame the problem correctly. April 15th is being treated as if it will instantly settle the XRP story. It will not. At best, it changes the next stage of the story, and that distinction matters. A vote can create momentum, but it does not automatically create enactment, implementation, banking access, custody alignment, exchange behavior, or institutional balance sheet confidence. Pause there. Most retail holders are trading the headline. Institutions are trading the chain of consequences after the headline. That is where the asymmetry is. If Senate banking leadership and floor managers move the process forward, the market may celebrate immediately, but institutions still have to ask the boring questions that move the big money. What is the final language? Are there amendments? When does the real framework start? What still has to clear after the vote? That leads to trap number 1, and this is the cleanest one. Passage is not enactment. Even a positive vote on April 15th, 2026 does not mean the market instantly wakes up on April 16th with full operational clarity. If the bill advances with unresolved language, follow-up procedures, or implementation questions, XRP can get the emotional benefit of a bullish headline without getting the full capital benefit of true certainty. That is dangerous because retail hears one sentence, it passed. Smart money hears 5 questions. Passed in what form? With what amendments? On what timetable? With which agencies aligned? And with what delay between law and usable market structure? Those are not small details. Those details are the trade. And here is the twist. A narrow or messy win can actually be worse for holders than a clean failure in the short term. A clean failure is ugly, but honest. The market reprices fast. A messy win is seductive. It invites overconfidence. It lets YouTube titles, influencers, and momentum traders sell certainty before certainty exists. Then the retrace comes when traders realize the next bottleneck still matters. That retrace is where mid-size holders make emotional mistakes. They chase the first candle because they think institutions must be coming next. Then they watch price cool off as legal mechanics, agency interpretation, and implementation timing take center stage. This is why vote day excitement and investable clarity are not the same event. Trap number 2 is amendments and procedural delay. This is the one almost nobody prices correctly because it does not fit cleanly into bullish or bearish. If April 15th produces amended language, delayed progression, or a narrower than expected outcome, XRP can still pump on the idea that progress happened, but the market may spend the next several sessions digesting what actually changed. Stop and think about that. The first move can be based on headlines. The second move is based on reading. The third move is based on whether institutions believe the path is now faster, slower, or still uncertain. That means the first reaction can be the least trustworthy reaction. For a holder who has been waiting months for a catalyst, that is emotionally brutal because the move that feels like confirmation can be the move with the worst risk reward. This matters even more because 2026 is not just about one vote, it is about a sequence. You have the April 15th window. You have May 15th 13F disclosures that could shape the next institutional narrative around XRP exposure. You have Q2 milestones tied to Ripple Trust Bank or charter expectations. You have the larger battle over which rails and platforms capture real transaction flow, whether that is Ripple-linked infrastructure or competing institutional networks. That means April 15th is not the whole movie, it is one scene. But retail keeps trying to trade it like the closing credits. Institutions do not do that. They ask whether this scene accelerates the next two scenes. If the answer is only maybe, they wait, and that waiting can flatten the exact move retail expected to explode. Trap number 3 is the most psychological one, and it is the one I think hurts mid-sized holders the most. People assume any bullish regulatory headline immediately improves their personal outcome. Not true. Your outcome depends on your entry, your time horizon, your bag size, and whether you act into volatility or react to it. If you hold 750 XRP and price spikes hard on April 15th, that does not automatically change your financial life. If you hold 5,000 XRP, the same move may matter more, but only if it holds. And if the move fades because the market realizes the vote created narrative clarity rather than commercial clarity, the holder who bought emotionally after the headline can end up worse off than the holder who did nothing. Let me make that concrete with scenario math, not prediction. Say XRP is trading in a zone where a big headline can trigger a fast 20% move. A 750 XRP bag in that scenario gains the equivalent of 150 XRP worth of price movement. Sounds exciting, but if the market then retraces 15% as amendments, procedure, or delayed implementation sink in, most of that emotional win disappears. Now scale that to 1,500 XRP or 5,000 XRP, the numbers get bigger, but so does the temptation to mismanage the moment. Bigger bag, bigger emotion. That is why catalyst trading without a plan is dangerous. The chart does not punish ignorance evenly. It punishes people most when the headline feels safest. Here is the data point that changes the whole frame for me. Markets pay most for reduced uncertainty, not for reduced excitement. That sounds obvious, but most holders trade as if the opposite is true. A dramatic vote day headline can increase excitement while leaving critical uncertainty unresolved. That combination creates some of the noisiest price action in the market. And if this breakdown is already saving you from a sloppy April 15th decision, hit like right now, because the biggest mistake is thinking the first move tells you the whole story. Usually it only tells you who reacted first. The real signal comes after the market has time to compare the headline with the actual path to institutional participation. So what would real institutional confirmation look like? Not just celebration from crypto accounts, not just a green candle, not even just passage headlines. Real confirmation would look like narrowing legal ambiguity, cleaner implementation expectations, stronger confidence around custody and bank participation, and then evidence that larger players are willing to size exposure accordingly. That evidence may arrive later than retail wants. It may show up through disclosures, banking posture, product expansion, or transaction flow narratives, rather than one explosive candle on April 15th. In other words, the market can be directionally right about the catalyst and still wrong about the timetable. That nuance is where a lot of retail P&L gets destroyed. Now let us talk personal implication, because this is where generic coverage usually fails. If you are holding 750 XRP, you are probably not looking for a 5-cent pop. You are looking for a move big enough to matter. So comment 750, 1500, or 5000 below, depending on your bag range, because the right response to April 15th is different for each one. A 750 XRP holder needs to protect against emotional overtrading. A 1500 XRP holder needs to think about staggered decisions, not all-in reactions. A 5000 XRP holder has to think about downside volatility in dollar terms, not just coin terms. Same headline, different pressure. That is why copying someone else's conviction from social media is a terrible plan. Here is a simple example. If XRP were at $2, a 750 XRP bag is worth $1,500. A fast move to $2.40 takes that to $1,800. That feels meaningful, but it is not life-changing, and that matters because people do irrational things when a non-life-changing move feels like the start of a life-changing one. For 1,500 XRP, that same move takes the bag from $3,000 to $3,600. For 5,000 XRP, it is $10,000 to $12,000. Now imagine the market gives half of that back because the vote was positive but incomplete. The 750 holder watches a promising gain shrink. The 1,500 holder starts second guessing. The 5,000 holder feels real dollar pain. Same event, three very different emotional traps. And here is the contrarian part nobody wants to hear. The worst April 15th outcome for many XRP holders may not be a red day, it may be a green day that convinces them the hard part is over when it is not. Because once holders believe the legal question is fully settled, they start pricing in instant bank adoption, instant institutional flows, instant utility rating, instant repricing of every bullish narrative they have been carrying for years. But institutions do not deploy capital on vibes. They deploy on sequence, compliance, timing, and operational usability. If April 15th only improves the conversation, but does not complete the pathway, price can overshoot reality first, then snap back toward the true timeline. So what do you do with that? You build a framework before the date. Ask three questions. First, did the event reduce uncertainty or just increase excitement? Second, did the pathway get shorter in a measurable way or merely louder on social media? Third, does the post-vote reaction fit the actual substance, or is it front-running expectations that still depend on later confirmations like disclosures, charters, or implementation details? That framework sounds boring. Good. Boring is profitable when everybody else is emotional, and if the answer to those questions is mixed, then mixed positioning is more rational than blind conviction. Not fear, not hype, precision. This is also why I think the open loop from the start matters so much. I told you there was one vote day outcome that could fool almost everyone. Here it is, a bullish headline accompanied by unresolved amendments, procedural drag, or a narrow passage that the market reads as final clarity. That is the trap. It is bullish enough to create FOMO, but incomplete enough to delay the real institutional follow-through. Retail celebrates the symbol. Institutions study the substance. That gap can last days, weeks, maybe longer. And in that gap, price can become extremely unfair to the people who react late and emotionally dot. So if April 15th comes in cleaner than expected, great. Then the next job is to see whether the follow-through confirms it. If it comes in messy but positive, that is not automatic failure, but it is also not automatic validation of every moon case. And if it disappoints outright, then at least the market can reprice honestly instead of walking through a hype trap first. That is the real contrarian takeaway. Do not judge the event by whether the first candle is green. Judge it by whether the next chain of confirmations becomes faster, simpler, and more investable. That is the difference between a headline catalyst and a durable catalyst. If you want one sentence to carry into April 15th, let it be this. XRP does not just need a vote that sounds good. It needs a path that behaves good for institutions, exchanges, banks, and capital allocation after the vote. That is a much higher bar, and it is why so many holders will misread the first move. Subscribe if you want the follow-up breakdown right after the event, because the most valuable video will not be the hype video before the vote. It will be the analysis after the market shows whether it bought narrative clarity or real clarity. And before you go, tell me your bag range and whether you think the biggest risk is delay, amendments, or false confidence. That answer says a lot about how ready you are for April 15th.